This podcast was recorded by BKRPodcast.com.
This is Brother Neely Fuller Jr. Brother Neely Fuller Jr., welcome back to WOL.
Yes, thanks for inviting me.
Always a pleasure. We hear about the perils of shopping while black. Brother Neely Fuller, can you explain to us why some of our folks keep going back to these stores, getting insulted, and we keep going back and getting know we're going to get insulted, but we still keep going back. What's going on there?
Well, don't go. That's all. You just don't go unless it's imperative that you do go, that you absolutely have to go, because you don't have any alternative if that is the case. What I write about and what I talk about is the law of compensation. Compensatory law. The title of my book is The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And when you're subject to a system where the system is designed to be insulting, and that's the system of racism, and all non-white people are subject to that system, that's my evaluation, then you can expect to be insulted each and every day, either directly or indirectly. Even when you don't think you're being insulted, even when the insulting language is not used, you're still being insulted by being subject to an insulting system, because the system of racism is insulting, and that's the only system that we have ever known. When I say we, I mean the people who are classified as non-white. The white supremacists, and that's the correct title for them, of this planet, are the dominant political and religious force and economic force, if you want to use the term economics. I don't use it within that context, but they are the dominant people on the planet when it comes to non-white people. So non-white people can expect. We shouldn't get jolted when we're insulted or call names, anything like that. You can't, there's no way to pretty it up anyway. And when people do try to pretty up an incorrect system, then they are going more into the realm of illusion. And that is going to engender more frustration, confusion, and ultimately disappointment and anger. Because you can't walk around trying to evade reality. We're in a racist system. We are not in any other system. Racism is not something that people encounter every now and then. We are in a racist system. The entire system is racist. There's no part of the system that is not racist. In every area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now, what does that mean? It means that the people who have chosen to be racist, meaning white supremacists, have become the most powerful political and religious people on the planet when it comes to non-white people. People who are classified as black, brown, red, yellow, tan, beige, etc., etc. And so, therefore, that's an insulting system. And so black people have gotten to the place, particularly in the modern times, since what we call the post-chattel slavery, black people expect to be respected. That's why black people kill each other, many of them, many of the younger black people more than anybody, about this thing called dissing, or being disrespected. You're in a disrespectful system. And all the killing that black people do among each other all the time, saying you're disrespecting me, therefore I have to kill you so that you won't disrespect me anymore. And then you run right into the same thing again and again and again. How many bodies can you stack up? Because you are being disrespected in a disrespectful system. If you're classified as black, you're not supposed to be respected. You're on a slave ship. The entire planet is a slave ship. It's not called that, but that's basically what it is. And the destination of that ship is just its own destination, meaning subjugation to the system of racism. There's no black person anywhere on the planet who is not subject to the system of racism. So you wake up in the morning, go through the day, and go to bed that night, and all through the night while you're asleep, you're being disrespected. You're being insulted because you have been put into a prison based on your color. That is one of the biggest insults, not only that a person can receive, but it's really a slap in the face and an attempted insult to the creator of the universe. But the white supremacists don't care about that. They don't mind insulting the creator of the universe. They'll say, I don't like your creation. You made all these black, brown, red, and yellow people and put them among me. I'm supposed to have the planet to myself. And since they're here, though, I will insult them and I will kick them around. Your product, even though I am your product. I don't want to be bothered with these other products that you made. So actually, they are not only at war with the black people of this planet, they're at war with their creator and with ours, unless I've been misinformed.
I don't think you have. He just joined us, his brother Neely Fuller Jr. Number to call to speak to him is 800-450-7876. We're going deep today, folks, so you got to listen intently to what Brother Neely Fuller is going to lay down. He's going to talk about his book, and I just call it The Code. That's the short name for it. But you keep listening. He'll give us the full name and how you can pick up this book, and also how you can deal with racism, because it hits us every day. As he mentioned, we started off by talking about the people going to Barney's and Macy's and getting disrespected in the stores, and they still keep going back. Brother Neely Fuller explained why they keep going back, and also really explain to us the situation that's going on in Chicago, where with our young people shooting and killing each other. It's respect. Folks, we've got to take a quick break. We've got traffic and weather update and some other stuff we want to pass on to you. Then we come back, take your calls, and also speak to Neely Fuller Jr. You too can reach him at 800-450-7876. That's 800-450-7876. We'll take you.
This podcast was recorded by BKRPodcast.com.
Black, and the folks who are going to Barney's and Macy's up in New York City are having problems purchasing items. Brother Neely Fuller Jr. says, the solution is they just shouldn't go. But Neely Fuller Jr., how do you tell these young people who believe we're in a quote-unquote post-racial society, if you will, that they can't shop where the white other folks shop?
That's where the problem is. That's exactly where the problem is. They think something that is not true. You're not in a post-racial society. You're in a society that's completely dominated by racism. Wall to wall, floor to ceiling, the entire planet. It's the most powerful idea and the most powerful government on the planet. All of the so-called governments are non-existent until everybody understands that. Clearly understands that. We're just going to go around in a circle and keep talking about we went this place and went that place and somebody acted like they didn't like me. I mean, we're looking at a system, a world system that's designed to not care anything about non-white people, particularly the darker the skin, all over the planet, 24 hours a day, in every area of activity, that here are some people who were designed, some people who were born to be despised and kicked around, eligible for all kinds of mistreatment. That is the ideology of the greatest government system ever thought up. And the name of that government, don't call it by other names, that causes confusion. The name of that government is the system of white supremacy. It's not the American government, not the Russian government, not the conservative government, not the Tea Party government, not the Ku Klux Klan. These are just labels. I mean, abstract labels. It's just one label. One size fits all. The system of white supremacy. You got it all in one package. That's all you have to say. You don't have to say anything else. You don't have to say these white people who believe in racial segregation. And then next week, these white people who are bigots. And then next week, these white people that mistreat black people. And then next week, these white people who are members of the Republican Party. That's confusion. Call it what it is. Each and every individual white person who believes in and who practices white supremacy is a part of the system of white supremacy. And call it that. That doesn't say all white people. It doesn't even say most white people. It just says those who are. And those who aren't. But those who are white supremacists are more powerful than those who aren't. And where's the evidence of this? If the white people who didn't believe in racism were more powerful than the white people who did believe in racism, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And there would be no such thing as black magazines and black radio, black TV, or black anything. Why? Because there wouldn't be any need for it. NAACP and all of this wouldn't even exist. Nobody had ever even thought about it. Well, you need a National Association for the Advancement of Colored People if colored people are already advanced. Duh.
So if we follow that theory, it's always going to be like this then?
No.
No?
No, because anything that people put together, people can take apart, and that's been proven all through nature. All you have to do is just study the natural order of the universe. Fire will burn, water is wet. Now, you've seen buildings put up. 1786, the building is built. And they decide that they're going to make a shopping center or something where that building is sitting. That building can come down in 15 minutes, even though the building was built 200 years ago. You've seen that happen right before your very eyes. Anything that people put together, people can take apart. But you have to know how it's put together, and you have to address how it's put together. You can't keep chipping away at something down the street and thinking that you're disturbing something that's 3 blocks away. That's not logical. But that's how black people have been taught to think. We don't see the whole picture. We just see parts of a picture. So we're just chipping away at little edges here and little edges there. And so somebody said something, they called me a name when I went in that store, and so therefore I'm not going to that store anymore. I'm going to all the other thousands of stores other than that one. And all of the other thousands are the same store. We have to realize that. It's like trying to find another comfortable spot on a slave ship. Sure, you might find one, but you're still on a slave ship. And the rats and roaches and whatnot, I mean, are all over the ship. So you're going to get bitten wherever you go. Wherever you go on the planet. There's one system of government on this entire planet unless I'm not telling the truth. And I always ask people, don't believe anything that Neely Fuller says, ever. Check it out yourself. Go and put it to an acid test and see if it's true. Because I've talked to people, I haven't been very many places on the planet, but I will say this, I have talked to people who have been to many places on the planet, and they say, well, anywhere you go, when it comes to this color thing, it's real. It's real. You may not see it right away, but if you hang around a little while, you'll see it because it's there. It's nowhere to run, folks. And you're going to be insulted everywhere you go. We got to understand that. Until what? Until we replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. And that's our job. We can't wait for somebody else to do it. That's what we should be thinking about, rather than always looking for a reason to celebrate. We don't have a reason to celebrate. We never did have, ever since we came under the government of white supremacy. slaves and prisoners of war don't have room for celebration. We make 3 or 4 baby steps, and it's celebration time. We need to get that notion out of our head, because then, after the celebration, we get insulted, and then we got to, lick our wounds and whatnot for 40 days and 40 nights, and then until we can get another breath and hope that we don't get insulted again. And I want to say something about that thing about respect. Stop asking for it, ever. Stop asking for it. Why? For a very logical reason. Respect is something that you give yourself. You never look for another person to give you respect, because whoever can give you respect can take it away from you. So what is self-respect? What I've written in my book years ago, self-respect is refusing to lie to yourself like we do often about racism. Once you start lying to yourself, you're through booking. Once we start saying, well, I feel so bad about racism, I don't even want to deal with it anymore, so I'm just going to blank it out of my mind. Well, you can blank it out of your mind all you want to, but it's still a reality, and it's still the thing that's going to dictate how you exist on this planet. Every time you take a breath, you're going to breathe it in and breathe it out, because that's all that you're in. You're not in someplace else. Sometimes we as black people collectively, we think that we have a breathing space. There's no breathing space on a slave ship. You're still on the slave ship. I don't care where you, in the forecastle or the captain's cabin. Sometimes we do, take a little sojourn to the captain's cabin, and it's nice and plush up there and all like that, but you're still a slave in the captain's cabin of a slave ship. It's a slave ship, the entire planet. Doesn't make any difference where you go. There's no place to run, no place to hide. You have to turn the entire ship into a ship of quality relations between people. I call it the ultimate voyage, where people become just people.
All right, hang on right there.
And non-white people.
Hang on there, Dr. Fuller, because we got to take a quick break. Folks, you've got a question from Dr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and we're going real deep today. 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls right after this quick break.
This podcast was recorded by BKRPodcast.com.
On Facebook and Twitter at carlnelsonshow.com. Our guest is Neely Fuller, Jr. The book is called The Code. That's a short title. It's got a long title, and he'll tell you the title later on in the show, and also tell you how you can pick up the book. We're discussing racism, and basically the backdrop for this discussion started by what's going on in New York City at Barney's and Macy's, with people going in there and getting disrespected. Dr. Neely Fuller, Jr. says it's about respect. He says that's what we're searching for as black folks. And, a lot of people feel that they can go in there. They're under the illusion of inclusion. They shouldn't be disrespected when we go to these stores. He says he's simply like, just don't go there. But what are your thoughts? 800-450-7876. Let's go to line 1. John's in Maryland. He's been home for a while. John, you're on with Neely Fuller, Jr.
Greetings to Mr. Fuller. I haven't spoken with Mr. Fuller in some time. Many years ago, Mr. Fuller, I'd say about 10 years ago, Mr. Fuller helped me greatly in the workplace by even coming to the workplace where I work and helping me to understand racism a bit better. The beauty that I saw in the code was that the code does not require you to accept anything to understand it. It really requires the person to look through whatever the code is, whatever either you've written for yourself or whatever requirements that will help you to solve the problem at hand. And the problem that I was having was your case of racism, white supremacy. That's like I wanted to say.
Yeah, John, your phone's kind of cracking up. Can you get through it real quick? Because
yes.
Your phone's breaking up.
My question would be this for Mr. Fuller. What is the reason that a victim of white supremacy would want to even practice some something out of the code book, because it seems like with the fear of the environment, the fear of making a white supremacist angry will be enough to keep them from wanting to use the code. Why would a person adopt codification?
The question is what now?
Why would a person want to adopt codification?
Oh, well, that's what I mean. See, it comes codification. In my way of thinking, this means a way of going about doing things in the most efficient manner. Now, we're talking about one specific thing because everything, comes down to specifics. Everything is in the details. Okay, when you say you're being insulted in a store, what do you do? Because it always comes down to what you do. Do you scream and yell and start throwing things? Or do you run down the street screaming and kicking the sides of cars and whatnot? Do you curse the person out that you think is being insulting? Do you call the police? What do you do? Now, I say you just look at your options that would make the most sense. Always follow the logic. Either just turn around and walk out and say you're not going back there anymore, and that's one. Or you can go and write a letter to the head of the corporation. That's two. Or right there on the scene, you can say, well, ma'am, and always be courteous. See, just because somebody else is not being courteous doesn't say that you're supposed to be discourteous. I always say never let anyone be more courteous than you in any circumstance. Doesn't make any difference how they're acting. You should have your own code. And your code should be, if you're a black person anywhere on this planet, you're going to always be courteous. If it's possible to be courteous, you're going to be more courteous than anybody, even when everybody else is being very, very discourteous. Because that's what we're basically talking about when we say respect. Because it's two different things. Respect and courtesy are two different things altogether. Respect is something that you give to yourself, so you never even ask for that. But when you're being courteous to people, that is a part of your code and or should be, and you should be consistent about that. Never let anybody deviate you from that, because I don't. I'm going to be courteous, more courteous than anybody if I possibly can be, in any crowd, regardless of what everybody else is doing. Nobody's going to beat me being courteous if I can possibly do so. So, the doing part, you ask the clerk, because you'll probably be dealing with a clerk, in a store or a salesperson behind the counter, and you might just tell the person, is this the procedure for handling customer service? Because you are a customer. Put everything in the form of a question. The way that you are talking to me, is this the way that you talk to everybody that comes in the store? Is this the store policy? And if the person says yes, then you'll say, well, I don't think this is a very practical policy. Can I speak to the manager? And if they can't speak to the manager, or even if the manager comes in and says, well, I agree with my clerk. So then that's when you write your letter or whatever, if you want to be that involved. Otherwise, you go somewhere else where people are courteous. I mean, that's just it. Why? Because it might be that all the way to the top, the person will say, the person has a picture of them back when they were in the Klan, on the wall probably. And that's 1,000 miles away from this particular corporate store. So you don't know. See, it just depends on whom you're talking to. And then on the other hand, not only the manager of the store, just probably someone who is intermediate, if you call it to their attention, might come there and say, I'm so very sorry. What is the problem? I'll handle it, and tell the clerk to stand aside and give them that eye as if to say, I'll handle you later because I'm tired of this. Every time I have to, come down from my office, I got problems up there. I have to come down and straighten out something that you're doing down here on the floor. Maybe you need another place to work. See? And most people get that message. See, a clerk in a store behind the counter is, after all, an employee, which means they came there and asked for a job. Now, jobs being what they are, I mean, you might say, well, you know what? Since it doesn't seem like you don't know how to talk to people from behind the counter, maybe you need to be somewhere other than behind the counter, and maybe since I don't have a job, maybe I need yours because I know how to talk to people. I mean, there's lots of scenarios you can choose, but don't blow up and start cursing. Don't start calling names, ever. Just ask questions about what people are supposed to be doing, you know, because under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which we learned in school, everybody's supposed to be treated the same. So you can just go into that if you want to. But basically you're saying, is this the policy? Is this the code of this store, of this corporation? And so I'll spread the word that everybody, you know, that works in a store like this is supposed to be talked to the way that you're talking to me. And I'll spread that word. You know, would you like to, you know, put it in writing the way that you talk to the customers? Is this the top-of-the-line customer service? Am I a customer, or what am I to you as a clerk in a store? Or what am I to you if you're the manager of the store? Whom am I when I walk through that door? What am I to you? And would you kindly put it in writing and sign your name to it? Maybe the corporate heads would like to know about how excellent you are performing down here in this. Lots of scenarios you can adopt. But most of us are not prepared. See, and I'm all prepared for anybody to be insulting because I'm in an insulting world. Never get caught off guard. Never go into shock.
All right, I tell you what, hang on, Neely Fuller Jr. We've got some more folks who want to speak to you. As I mentioned, you got to really listen closely to what Dr. Fuller is saying. It's real deep, talking about racism, how to deal with it. Folks, you can reach him at 800-450-7876. Let me give you that number again. It's 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls right after this quick.
This podcast was recorded by BKRPodcast.com.
Thank you for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. He's the author of the book, The Code, telling us how to deal with racism. And if you just joined us, with the backdrop is, of course, what was going on in New York at Macy's and Barney's when the folks went in to buy items and they were accosted after they left the store. And how to deal with it. That's basically what we're talking about. And you've got to listen really closely to the solutions that Dr. Neely Fuller has, and it's all spelled out in his book called The Code. You can reach him at 800-450-7876. That's 800-450-7876. Let's go to line 3. Dewan is in D.C. Dewan, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr. Is Dewan there? All right, I think we lost Dewan. All right, Neely Fuller Jr., for those who just got on, you said that it's about respect. Is it? Do you think those people who went into those stores, do you think they were seeking respect, or they just wanted to purchase an item? Do you think they were trying to prove something?
Well, each individual case has to be taken as an individual case. Sometimes people go into the store with the intention of doing something other than making a purchase. And then that becomes very problematic. So, see, it's not just a broad brush thing. Now, racism does exist everywhere. That's a given. But now, if the word has gone out from corporate heads that if any black people come into the store, you are supposed to be discourteous to them. Now, you want to know that from the corporate heads, because people are not going to be discourteous who are behind the counter if they want to keep their jobs, unless they think that they got backing in what they're doing. And the backing comes from either directly or indirectly from someone, most likely, if it's in an area where there are a lot of black people who come and go, by white supremacists, who has made that decision. If black people come in here, show them the utmost discourtesy so that they won't come back, because we don't want their business. Now, if that's the message, everybody should get that message. But if the message is unclear, if the people who are sitting behind the polished desk in the corporate boardrooms and whatnot don't know that this is going on, then maybe they should be informed. That's all. It's just a matter of information. Most people who are working behind the counter want a job. Otherwise, they wouldn't be behind the counter. So when they are told by somebody who gave them the job, one more incident like this and you're out of here, and that's a clear message. That's a message that I would understand. If I got a nice job with dental benefits and whatnot, I don't know how many benefits they have. It might be a job I don't care anything about. But if I don't care anything about it, what am I doing there? Okay? But I'm saying if I care enough about it to be there, then I will get a message from the person that hired me saying, you can't do this. You will say yes, sir, and no, sir, and you will be patient with people. And now, if people come in there to steal and all like that, there are procedures for that. But you don't show discourtesy under any circumstance, because courtesy is a part of customer service in most businesses. So it's really very simple. And then sometimes people do make false charges. They're saying that somebody's being discourteous when they're the one who is being discourteous. I mean, case in point, you might say, as an illustration, I go and where all the displays are and all like that, I knock everything off on the floor. And then a clerk comes around and says, please don't do that, sir. I mean, you're throwing everything on the floor, and that's not where, other customers have to come in and buy things. And if you have everything on the floor, you just take everything off the shelf and set it on the floor, then, and then you're saying, well, wait a minute now, I'm the customer. And see, that's what I mean by individual cases. And some black people and some white people will do that type of thing. So you don't sound alarms. We're trying to produce a world, or we should be, black people more than anybody, where people are the way that people should have been when they first appeared on the planet. That is, interacting with each other in the most constructive fashion imaginable, 24/7 everywhere on the planet. Not all of this destruction that the white supremacists themselves love. That's why we have it. That's why we have all of this destruction, all of this killing. They worship killing. They worship death, and they teach it to all of the black people so that we worship death. We like dead things. We like for even our neighborhoods to look like everything is dead. I mean, because we have picked that up from the white supremacists. We like trash all over everything. We like a trashy lifestyle. Just, find some trash and dive right in it. We got that from the white supremacists because that's the way they want us to be. We shouldn't be the way that they want us to be. We should be just the opposite. We should be the most courteous people on the planet under all circumstances. On one side of the counter, or on the other side of the counter, or even when there is no counter. Just be courteous. Doesn't cost anything. Talk nice to people. It's the way that the world should have been in the beginning. But we try to think up every curse word that we can use and try to invent new ones, if we can, that people will listen to. But we got that from the white supremacists, and we should stop picking that up from them. Be a people that's different from any people that ever existed. That's the type of people we should be. I described some of it in my book. I call it universal man and universal woman. Why? Because we're in the universe. We've been given not just this planet, but we have been given this planet in the universe. And we should think about universal principles, like justice. That's a universal principle, or should be. that should be put into practice. It's a concept, but it's not in practice. You don't have it anywhere, nowhere on the planet. Why? Because the white supremacists don't want it. That's why. And we just buy right into it. We shouldn't act the way that they act at any level, because they are about mistreatment. By word and by deed, they are about mistreatment. And they teach their victims and their subjects to go around mistreating each other. And that needs to stop. We need to think on a grand scale and think in terms of not copying off of anybody who's ever even existed. We should be people who have never existed. We should be evolving into universal man, universal woman, with what I call in capital letters, quality relationships. That's the logic of the universe. It's not Neely Fuller's logic. But the white supremacists don't want people to be that way. They like mess. And they have taught black people to love mess. I mean, we are people just go around looking all day long, just looking for mess. And if nobody's starting any mess, we want to start it. And that's why I even say that black people should stay away from each other. We always say we should get together. No, we're poisonous. We should only get together when we have a constructive reason for doing so. Otherwise, we should go the other way when we see each other coming. I want to stick that in there. Because some of the discourtesy is coming from other black people. And then white people, of course, they have that attitude when they're dealing with black people. If they are white people who believe in white supremacy, naturally they're going to act like they believe in it. And if they are clerks in a store, you better believe they're going to show it. They're going to give you that glare when you come in, as if to say, don't bother me. Don't dare come to my counter. What do you want? You shouldn't be in here anyway. In fact, you shouldn't even be breathing. In fact, you shouldn't be anywhere on the planet. In fact, you shouldn't be in the universe. But since you are here, I'll let you know what I think about you being here or anywhere else on my planet. Because that's where a white supremacist thinks. Welcome to the real world.
And welcome to the real world. Folks, the number to call, speak to Neely Fuller Jr. is 800-450-7876. When we come back, if you'll help us out, because, on the job and in school or when we work with these folks, they tell us, well, I'm not racist. I didn't own any slaves. Or why you guys keep bringing that old stuff up? How should we react when we hear those kind of phrases by the other folks? And I'll let you respond to that on the other side. Our guest is Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. You can reach him at 800-450-7876. His book is called The Code. We'll tell you how to get a copy of that book as well, so you know how to deal with racism and how you recognize it when it's being played at you. Folks, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.
This podcast was recorded by BKRpodcast.com.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. Of course, you can always reach us on Facebook and Twitter at carlnelsonshow.com. And those of you getting off right now in the district, please drive carefully and keep listening to us on 1450 WOL. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. And the number to call to speak to Neely Fuller Jr. is 800-450-7876. Again, that's 800-450-7876. Before the break, I posed the question, how do we deal with this when we're on the job or we're in school and the other folks say, well, I'm not racist. I didn't have any slaves. I didn't have a plantation. I don't have anything against you. How do you respond to stuff like that?
By saying, usually people go the past route. In other words, by past they mean when black people were on what they call a farm, on a plantation, place where they grew cotton and whatnot. And they will put it in that box. Racism is not in a box. Racism, when you talk about racism in the past, you're talking about one fraction of a second ago, because that's the past. Racism is present now. We're not talking about the past in that context. We're talking about racism minute by minute as it is practiced right now. The system of white supremacy is the world government right this minute. white supremacy is racism, racism is white supremacy. There's no other form of racism anywhere on the planet other than white supremacy. And that's now, not 300 years ago, not 150 years ago. It's right this minute. The dominant political and religious force on the planet right this minute. And every white person who is not resistant and trying to consciously and deliberately eliminate racism, with the exception of infants who don't know the difference between one color and another, because in order to be a white supremacist, you have to know your colors. That's number one. And I'm not talking about senile white people. So who are your racist suspects? People who are able to practice racism. So you can't be a racist without being able to practice it. And since we're already in a racist system, it means that a white person is born into the system. And a black person is born into the system. It's like everybody being born on a slave ship. And think of the slave ship as being the entire planet. Because racism is the dominant political force on the entire planet. And racism is a form of slavery. Because anytime you mistreat people and the person is not able to resist the mistreatment, that person is a slave. See, we have to get our definitions in perspective, too. I'm going to repeat that. Any person on this planet right now who is being mistreated by anyone, and the person is not able to resist the mistreatment for whatever reason, too weak or don't know what to do or whatever, but the mistreatment continues and continues and continues. And the person doesn't know what to do about it. And no one comes to the aid of the person who's been mistreated. That person who is being mistreated is, by definition, a slave to the person who is doing the mistreating. So slavery never ended. We just call it by different names. But slavery is nothing but mistreatment by a person or persons who have the ability to mistreat. And the people who are trying to resist the mistreatment don't know how to resist it. They're subject to it. They have to put up with it. That person is automatically a slave to the person who is doing the mistreatment. And the mistreatment based on color is called racism. It's just another form of mistreatment, the most powerful form that it is turned out to be. So when a white person says, well, I didn't have anything to do with owning slaves or anything like that, you'll say, well, wait a minute, are you an anti-racist or are you a racist? Do you know the difference between one color and another? Do you know a non-white person when you see one? And the person says yes. They say, well, are you spending most of your time trying to stop being a racist suspect because you're on that list? Sorry about that. It's not personal, it's business. You're born into a racist system, and you fit the description of a person who could be a racist. Why? Because you're classified as white. And to give another illustration, it's like a German born in not born in 1936, but a German who is 19 years old or 20 years old in 1936 in Germany. You're born in Germany. You're a German. You're 20 years old or 21 years old in Germany in 1936, and Adolf Hitler is in power. So you look at who's in power. And Adolf Hitler says, you are now a member of the German Third Reich. Why? Because you were born a German in Germany. And I've classified you as a German in Germany. Now, it's not your fault, but that's how you've been classified. And you will be conscripted into the German army. And in a few months, maybe you'll be on the Russian front. Now, it doesn't have anything to do with whether you like it or not. But that's the world that you have been given. So now you got a choice. Either you're going to fight on the Russian front, or fight at Normandy, to stop Eisenhower's army from landing there, or you're going to rebel against Adolf Hitler. Take your choice. And that's the choice that every white person, truth be told, has to make right now. Every white person on the planet. Are you going to resist racism and try to overcome it and try not to be one, because that's what you have to do to prove that you're not one, and spend your time rather than going fishing and going hunting and all like that and talking about, that you believe in going to gun shows and all like that. You're supposed to be fighting racism, mister. If you're going to a gun show, you're going to the gun show to figure out how to fight racism with that gun. Otherwise, why are you going to the gun show? Well, I'm a deer hunter. You're not supposed to be hunting deer, sir. You're supposed to be hunting justice. Making the world just, meaning the first order of business is to get rid of racism, because you're not going to straighten out any major problem on this planet without getting rid of the problem of racism. That is a statement that I'm making that's either true or false. I have it on the back of the book that you can get by going into the computer and to producejustice.com. But on the back of the book it says no major problem can be solved on this planet without first solving the problem of racism. Why? Because racism is the dominant problem on the planet. And I don't care what kind of problem you kind of sort out between people. People fighting about religion, people fighting about jobs, people fighting, having labor disputes. The educational system right here in the Northwestern Hemisphere, they've been squabbling about that for about 50 or 60 years now. When people talk about education right now, what's the biggest issue in education? Not the budget. It's race. It's what color somebody is. How many black children you're going to have in this school, and how many white ones you're going to have in there, and why people keep moving from whole neighborhoods just on the issue of education. Black people, white people who are moving into the cities now. Oh, yes, they'll walk their dogs up to a point. But what happens when they start walking strollers and carrying babies, which is coming next, behind the dogs? The babies are coming, white babies. Now, those babies are going to grow up and become school age, and they're going to be going to that school down the street that's completely dysfunctional, because nobody's learning anything, because the black students are down there tearing up the place and fighting and carrying 9mm and rapping up and down the aisles of the school because they feel like they're disenfranchised, like nobody cares about them, and that even if they learn something, they're not going to get a job anyway. So now when the young white lady brings her daughter in there to that same school, she says, I'm not putting my daughter in that mess. So build me another school somewhere. Or I want a private school set up in this city where my daughter will not be insulted all day and called names like all these black students spend all day calling each other names.
All right. We're going to take a break right there. Hang on, Neely Fuller Jr. We'll get back to the name calling. What is behind all of that? I want you to explain that first, because the use of the N-word is just tossed around all the time by some of our people. 800-450-7876 is the number to call. Speak to Neely Fuller Jr. We'll take your phone calls right after this show.
This podcast was recorded by BKRPodcast.com.
And thank you for staying with us, folks. And I know you're listening intently because you have to for this discussion with Neely Fuller Jr. The book is called The Code. Let's do it right now. Brother Neely Fuller, tell them the full title of the book and how they can pick up a copy.
Full title of the book is called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. I wanted to shorten that title, but there was no way to do it and still be saying what I wanted to say. But I did have another title that's more explicit, and that is a subtitle, A Textbook Workbook for Thought, Speech, and or Action for Victims of White Supremacy, which is racism. That's a textbook workbook for thinking, for speaking, and for acting for the victims of racism. And you can get it by punching into the computer, producejustice.com. That's, repeat again, producejustice.com. And what should come up on the screen is a brief description of the basic textbook and then an additional book called a compensatory word guide. That's a word guide. It's something like a dictionary, but it's not a dictionary. It shows you how to use words, how not to use words, what words not to use, what words to ask questions about when other people use them. Because a lot of words have very unclear definitions. And a lot of words are very confusing in what we call the English language.
All right. And number to call right now to speak to Neely Fuller Jr. is 800-450-7876. Let's go to line 1. Rich is in Virginia. Rich, you have a question for Neely Fuller Jr.?
Well, not necessarily a question. I would like to touch on a word that he used. He said, the word that he said was classification. And many of the so-called black leaders, let me move to another spot in my house here so you don't hear that cooking. Many of the black leaders in our community always refer to our community as being blacks. That is probably one of the most ridiculous terms that we could ever refer to ourselves as if we understood our history. Black is a term that was put upon us when we went into slavery. Black people are second-class citizens in this country, not because of them just being black, but because of the way we allow ourselves to be classified as blacks. Prior to becoming black, we had a nationality. The world is made up of people, all who have nationalities except black folks. So until we claim our nationality, we will always be second-class citizens. Once you claim a nationality, we have treaties in place with the United States which we can exercise in order to get the things that we need to build up our communities. And it just hurts me every time I hear a so-called black leader refer to his people, our people, as black people when they know we're not black. They know we are Moors, but they continue to call us black, putting us in a second-class position.
All right, I'll tell you what, Rich, thanks for your call. Let me get Neely Fuller Jr.
Can I hold on? Can I hold on? And the reason why I want to hold on is because the speaker there, he needs to be challenged on that.
All right, well, let's give him a chance to respond.
Well, what the gentleman is saying, what I write about is that since no one has solved the race problem, what he's saying may be the solution. It may be. Maybe if we just change the name that we are called, we call ourselves, I think he mentioned Moors, M-O-O-R-S. Maybe if we call ourselves Moors, maybe that's the solution to our problem. Maybe that automatically will mean everything is just fine. But that was his opinion. But I'm going to say, I don't think so.
Well,
I really don't think so. I don't think that will solve any problem at all. I think we'll still get stomped on.
Well, the only person who's going to solve your problem, my problem, is the individual. Okay, now, if you want to continue to call yourself by a name that the world knows means second-class citizen, then that's your right. But when you say that, when you talk about racism, there's only one race of people. That's the human race. It's divided into nations of people. So there's no such thing as racism. What you have going on is the theft of your birthright, which is your inherent right to do all the things that you want to do as a people without hurting another group or class of people. If you want to call them white, I don't call them white, but if they come up to you and try to take something from you or treat you in a different way, what they're doing is taking away or attempting to take away your birthright. They're not racism. They're taking away your birthright, which is your inherent right to be Whatever you want to be, you can go wherever you want to go as long as you're not trespassing. So this racism thing it's another term that we need to get rid of, because it's not racism. It's birthright theft. They're stealing your rights.
All right. We get the gist of it. Rich, thanks for your call. Neely Fuller Jr., you're on response to what are you saying? He says racism doesn't exist. I know you deal with words, so I know you'll be able to respond to what he just said.
Yes, what I'm saying, what the gentleman said could be correct. If we call ourselves Moors and stop using the term racism, maybe all our problems are solved. I don't know, but I just doubt it. I simply doubt it, because the white supremacists decided that they were going to call me by these names, and not only that, have the muscle, because it comes down to who's going to have the muscle after the names change. Who will have the muscle? Maybe if I call myself in the morning a Moor and say that I'm no longer dealing with racism, I'm dealing with individuals just doing their thing, and if I declare that by some magical wand, maybe everything will fall in my lap. I don't know. I just say I doubt that, because the record shows that a lot of black people call themselves by all kinds of names. Their tribal names and whatnot. But the white supremacists looked at them and said, I don't care what you call yourself. You say you're Kunta Kinte, and that's your name, I say you're Toby, and you're going to get stomped on. Why? Because I just am going to stomp on you, because I'm a white man, and I stomp on people that look like you. Not on anything about your background or where you came from or what you know or what your skill is. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. And I don't like the way you look, and I'm going to stomp on you, and you don't know what to do about it. And I don't care what you call yourself, you're going to answer to what I call you. And that's been proven all over the world. And that's all I can say about that. That's been proven all over the world. I'm not talking about things that are waiting to be proven. I'm talking about white supremacy has been proven all over the world as the most powerful political and religious force that the world has ever seen, right up to this minute. Otherwise, why are we having this conversation? And they are not.
And how do you explain that the words that we use to describe each other? He's talking about, both of you were talking about what the other folks call us.
We have words like Zulu. We have words like Ghanaian and Guamanian, and we have words like Nigerian. We have words like Congolese. We are loaded with names. But the white supremacist says, I got a name for you. When I look at you, I know exactly what you are, because I made you what you are. And you are somebody who's going to come under my thumb. I don't care what you call yourself. You can dress up and put turbans on your head, or you can put slippers on your feet, or you can have, you can grow dreadlocks and all like that. But, boy, you are going to do what I say. Now, how about that? I don't care what you call yourself. And you know what? Everywhere I've ever been, I've seen that happen. I've seen black people who look all different kinds of ways. But when the white supremacists come around, they say one size fits all. I've seen them not make exceptions to anyone. Here's one fellow standing over here with a suit and a tie, and another fellow sitting over here with a turban on and kente cloth like you wouldn't believe. I'm talking about beautiful kente cloth. He treats them both the same. What do you do about that? We're going to have to do something other than this magic of just switching a few words around.
All right,
have to switch a whole lot of words around.
Well, we got to take a break.
A whole lot of bodies around, too.
I want you to expound on what we do, because you mentioned right, and quite rightly so. Yes. It doesn't matter what we put on ourselves or what we call ourselves. We're all treated the same. What should be our response? And I'll let you expound on that on the other side of this break. Folks, you too can join this conversation with Neely Fuller Jr. It's real simple. It's 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls right after this quick break.
This podcast was recorded by BKRPodcast.com.
Circle now. The question I asked Dr. Neely Fuller before the break: how do we respond to this situation? These different, you got different people going in and back to the stores in New York, Barney's and Macy's, and one. I think one was an actor, so he probably figured he had a special privilege. He was an actor. He was supposed to be recognized, but they treated him just like they treat everybody, every other black person who stepped in their store with disdain. So, Brother Neely Fuller Jr., how do we react?
React to what specifically now?
To specifically heal, because you said that it doesn't matter how we're dressed or what we have. The white supremacists are going to treat us all the same.
Because they believe in white supremacy. We have to come up with a counter system. They have an entire system that covers 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now, that covers just about everything that anybody is doing any moment on the planet. So black people, or people who are classified as non-white, because that's what they call us, and that's what they predicate all of their actions on. See, it's not what I think of myself. I might think that I'm somebody that just got here from the moon, and I might tell people that. But it's what the white supremacists have said. They say, well, look, you are non-white, and I'm white. And regardless of what you say about yourself and your history and how much you know about your history, I'm not caring about that. I'm caring about you doing what I tell you to do. And if you don't do it, I can hurt you and will hurt you. And you know I'll hurt you. And you know I have hurt you. And all of your ancestors that came before you, I hurt all of them. And they all had different names and different tribes and whatnot. Do you read my lips? Do you understand the world that you are in? Or are you on some imaginary trip? And I'll take you out of that imagination in about 2 seconds. I'll just tell you to get off this curb, and there ain't no way you can stop me, because you don't know how to stop me, because none of your people have ever stopped me, ever. That's why I'm in charge now. Now, that's the voice of the white supremacists, and I've never seen any of them back down on that. Not any of them. I've seen many black people, non-white people, black, brown, red, and yellow, challenge them and got slapped to the pavement and then have to dig up the pavement to make their own graves. I mean, this is what I've seen. And I've never talked to anyone who's seen it anything different and told me that there's some place that it is different. I've never even talked to anyone like that. Oh, Fuller, well, they say, I've wished for someone to come to me and said, well, it's because you have been misinformed. And there are places where the white supremacists, people who believe in white supremacy, they bet not even think about touching. And the people who are there do what they please. And they are people that look just like you. And I will take you to this place. I've never had any black person do that. And I would like it if they did. I wouldn't resist it. I'm not just trying to make points just to make points. That's what I was looking for when I started writing. I couldn't find anybody, I couldn't even talk to anybody who had been to a place like that or even heard of a place like that. And when they talked of places like that, they talked about 2,000 years ago. Well, then, I asked a logical question. What happened? I mean, that's the logical question to ask. If these people were all that great, what happened? Why aren't they here now? Why are they extinct? And then usually I get an answer, well, they made some mistakes. You better believe they made some mistakes. That's why they don't exist anymore, unless I've been misinformed. Now, I will say, I want somebody to step forward and tell me where these people are now. Where do they exist now, anywhere on this planet? I'm not able to go to another planet, but I'd like to even hear about someone that are on another planet. I mean, that at least that could be an incentive to learn something. But let's get back to the question. What do we do? They have a system. We have to have a counter-racist system. But I'm being told that if I take the position that there is no racism, then there would be no reason to have counter-racism. And I've staked everything that I've been saying on something, a belief that there is such a thing as racism. Now, it could be that I'm making an error. But if I'm making that kind of error, I'm making a huge error. If racism does not exist, and if that is a figment of my imagination, in other words, that's just something that Neely Fuller made up, there is no such thing as any white supremacy. And I've had people tell me that. There's no such thing as white supremacy. That's my imagination. But I don't believe that's my imagination. I believe that there are people who are called white people who believe in mistreating people based on color. And I believe those people are what you call white supremacists, and I believe they're powerful. Now, there are people who tell me that that's non-existent, that I'm making it up, that I'm imagining that. And really, I've lost my mind. That's what it sounds like they're telling me. If I believe that, I have lost my mind, and that could be. But that's where I am now. So I'm saying we need a counter system to that system that's in place. I didn't go looking for that system to find out did it exist. That was imposed on me, or at least I thought it was. So the way out of it is for each area of activity, a black person. Now let's get down to the solution. For everything that we say and do, every day, like name calling, never call anybody a name except the name that the person wants to be called. If the person wants to be called a Moor, I will call the person that. Now, I don't know what the white supremacist is going to call them, but I got an idea. If the skin is dark enough, I got an idea. All right? But I ain't in that. I say that I will call every person, white and non-white, the name and title that that person wants to be called. Why? Because that's a part of the counter-racist code. You call people by the names that they want to be called regardless of what they call you. Because I'm saying that one order of business for black people, or people who are classified as non-white, is, first of all, call people by the names that they want to be called and be courteous to everybody. I mean, that's basic. That's the kind of world we want to build. See, we're not just talking about what we are confronted with now. There's no point in replacing white supremacy, or what I call white supremacy, if we're going to have the same old thing in blackface, or yellow face, or brown face, or some other kind of face, or some other type of sexual category, which is what the white supremacists are doing now, scrambling the sexes, degenderizing non-white people all over the world. That's a term I came up with. I made that term up because that's what they're doing. In order to do what? Confuse. When you can confuse any people about anything, this doesn't have to be sex, about economics, in their education, and the way they enter.
Thank you for staying with us, folks. Of course, you can always reach us on Facebook and Twitter at carlnelsonshow.com. Also, you can reach us the conventional method at 800-450-7876, like Ray did on line 1 in New York City. Ray, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr. Is Ray there on line 1?
Yes, sir. Rob calling from Kansas City.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh, is this Carl?
Yeah.
Oh, am I on the air?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay. Normally you have the screener. Is Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. still there?
He's waiting for you.
Junior. Not a doctor. I never cured anybody of anything.
I'm so used to the screener. Yeah, Dr. Fuller. I was on the internet the other day and I was observing I was just looking at all the lands that the people of Great Britain have colonized. Basically everywhere where there's people of color, China, Africa, United States, whatever. And so I went to the dictionary and I looked up the word colonize, and the word colonize means to conquer, and the word conquer means to subdue, overcome, defeat, and to control. And so, I tried to come up with an understanding of how is it that these people are able to take other people's lands. So, I'm going to give you a divine formula of how I think that these people end up taking people's lands from them. Okay, Dr. Neely Fuller, if When you wake up in the morning, go outside and stand on your front porch, close your eyes, and then reopen them again. Okay? Now, when you reopen your eyes, what do you see? You see land. You see grass. You see plants. You see trees, et cetera, et cetera. You see land. So where do you see all this land from? You see all this land from your eyes. Your eyes are the windows to your mind. So where is all this land located at that you're looking at? All this land that you're looking at is located in your mind. So how does someone come along who we refer to as white supremacists end up taking all the land that's in your mind? They do this by controlling how you think. This is how the white supremacists, Dr. Fuller, do. This is how they've always taken people's land, by controlling how people think, because that's where the land is located. I mean, that's, their job is to alter how you think. And even I can't think, Minister Louis Farrakhan, he made a reference to this years ago, but he didn't quite put out the mathematical principles that I'm putting out. Reverend Minister Louis Farrakhan said that the last great battle is going to be the battle of your mind, to control your mind. He said that about 5 years ago. So that's the mathematical principle of how these people how they manage to take people's lands all over the planet. They first have to come and alter the way you think. And even the Bible gives reference to this. It says in the book of John, it says, he who commits sin is a slave to sin. So the key word in that word, he who commits sin is a slave to sin, is the word slave. So sin is an action. Sin is an act and an action. Dogs, cats, horses, pigs, and cows cannot sin. Only human beings can sin. So when that scripture says he who commits sin is a slave to sin, what it's really saying is he who gets used to sin, you're going to become his property, because that's what a slave is. So that's what the white supremacist job has been all over the planet, is to go all over the planet to alter the way people think, so he can take all the land that's in their mind, to alter. To give them his interpretation of what God's character and nature is. And so, when we...
Well, what's your question?
Well, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to throw out my thinking of how of what their divine formula is for taking people's land, is to alter the way people think, and they've done an excellent job on our people's minds are just gone. We're people who are incapable of thinking for ourselves.
All right.
Yes.
Go ahead, Neely Fuller Jr. I'll let you respond to what he's saying.
Yes, well, he didn't have a question, but that's what white supremacy is. You can't control people unless you control their minds. That's a mathematical fact. Anybody who tries to, quote, unquote, raise a child or even give directions, I mean, if you're giving traffic signals, I mean, you're working with people's minds. I mean, if you're standing in the middle of the intersection giving signals here, turn to the right, turn to the left, these are mind signals. You're working with a person's mind. The car doesn't know anything about which way to go. The person who's driving the car has a mind. And the person who's driving the car is looking at the traffic officer standing out there, pointing in this direction, pointing in that direction. And so that goes without saying. That's a given. It's not just land that the white supremacists control. Once they control the person, they control everything about the person. So if the person claims that they have a wife or that they have a family, they do not have that. Why? Because whoever controls me controls everything that I claim is mine. And so therefore I don't have a wife under the system of white supremacy or a girlfriend. I have whomever the white supremacist allows me to be with, because I will not be with the person that I'm with if the white supremacist says, you're going to be with whomever I tell you to be with.
But don't we allow ourselves to be in that condition, or we don't have an alternative?
We have an alternative. We have to have a code that matches the power of their code. Every white supremacist has a code. Meaning what? A way of going about doing everything, not some things. It's exact. It's scientific. In other words, when you see the black person coming, you have a code for that black person. I'm not going to say this to this black person. Why? It'll make him angry. I will say this, 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 and this, and that'll have him laughing. See, they got us figured out. You can't deal with people unless you have them completely figured out. I mean, when I say deal with, you can't master them. The white supremacists have mastered black people so that they know exactly what to say to us to make us angry, what to say to us to have us laughing and turning flips, what to say to us to have us running down the street screaming, what to say to us to have us go to sleep, what to say to us to get us energetic and have us working in a frenzy. That's a science. And you don't get that way by just, casually just interacting with people. You get that way by studying every detail of the person that you intend to control. And the victims of white supremacy, if you're talking about what to do, we have to study the people who control us. We spend all our time watching each other, and that's the truth. Stop and think about it. When a black person is on the job, where are our thoughts? Mostly about other black people. The black people that we work alongside of, the black people who are out there in the street, the black people that we don't like, the black people that we do like. And then when we get the first chance we get, other than the white supremacists telling us to be on the job and watch that machine while it's running, the minute we take our eyes off that machine and start looking around at this big world, like the gentleman just said, that we're around, looking at the land and the grass, we don't see the land and the grass. We see other black people. Black people study black people more than we study anything. And that's why we don't learn anything either. Because there's nothing to learn except how to be like the other black people that we're looking at. And we are no examples for anybody, because we've been beaten down too much. Now, are the white supremacists examples? No. We don't have any examples. That's why we have to fashion and invent a code of thinking, speaking, and acting, a brand new code. We have to even jump what we call black culture, because it hasn't served us. That's why we keep going around in a circle and wringing our hands and talking about black people got to get together. And then when we get together, we just stand there and look at each other. And if we look at each other long enough, we start fighting. Well, because we compare ourselves with nobody but each other. And that's no comparison. One slave comparing to another slave. You ain't the one supposed to say quitting time. I'm the one supposed to say quitting time. Big deal.
And, I'm going to say quitting time now because we're just about out of time. But Neely Fuller Jr., please tell us how we can get a hold of your book, because you left us with a lot of knowledge this afternoon.
Yes, you can get the books by going to the computer, producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. That's it. Producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is the method for ordering. And here again, don't believe anything that Neely Fuller says, and don't use anything that he says to use, except to think about it and think about using what you can use.
All right. This is some great advice. Thanks, Neely Fuller Jr. Speak to you later. Folks, so we're going to roll out of here. Andre's up next. God willing, we're joining tomorrow, 4 o'clock, right here on 1450 WOL.